Great. Thanks, Martin, so much. I really appreciate that introduction. I hope I can live up to it. I'm Lindsay. I'm an alcoholic, and I can say all the same stuff about Martin. He's been one of the people who's been here since I've been here, and longer. And I always learn a lot from you, Martin, as well. I always think of you when I am applying my program. I'm like, wait, get back to your steps. So I'm really, really thrilled to tell my give my experience, strength, and hope today. I believe it is the second time I've done this for this group, but the first time was not recorded. So hopefully it won't be too repetitive, but I think it was a while ago. So whatever, it's fine. So my sobriety date is October 17th of 2022. And I want to talk a little bit about what it was like. So I will also, I believe in being like sensitive to people. And so if I talk about something that I think might be triggering, I will say like trigger warning. So, just, close your ears or whatever. But I do think that's important because I think especially since we have someone here on day one, like that's so awesome. Yay, good for you. I'm so glad you're here. Just to make sure that, I'm not bringing up anything that might, upset somebody in any way. So that said, so Martin did an awesome poster for me for this event. I kept all of he sent me like 10 and I kept all of them because I think they're so great. And I still have my one from the last time I talked, so I guess I could figure out when it was. Anyway, so I asked him though, the one that I wanted to highlight was one he created that had, nature and rainbows and butterflies. Because and I know it's like very cliche, like, and it's also like a right now thing to be like very into butterflies. And I'm not going to be like, oh, I was before they were cool, because like they're always cool. But I will say that butterflies like are really important to me. And not only because I do have a wonderful garden in my backyard where I have lots of native plants for them, and actually have a caterpillar in my room right now in the enclosure that I have, but also because and I recently went to a presentation on butterflies and monarchs and why people are so interested in them. And they said, basically, to sum it up, that monarchs teach us about wonder, transformation, migration, and resilience. And I promise I'm getting somewhere with this. So basically, that's what's happened to me in my journey in AA so far. So is that I have seen wonder. I have been transformed. Migration, I like kind of loosely, like they don't all, exactly apply. But resilience, the resilience that I've seen in myself and in this program, have been so awe-inspiring to me. So I just, I know that everyone in this room is resilient because you're all here. Even the person on day one, you have to be resilient to have, drank yesterday and come into this room today. So I kind of want to just think about that as I go through my experience here, because every time I see a butterfly, I think of my journey in AA, and I smile. And it's, yeah. So okay, so growing up, just start at the very beginning. So I was born, no, so I grew up I grew up in a family of, I'm one of three kids, Irish Catholic family, very close. And my family was full of love, but we were also like really, really intense. And there was some abuse between my parents, and us, and it was something that I really have only recently kind of taken a good hard look at. So I do say that because, it does influence my story. I will get to what I do for a job, just, vaguely, and it has to do with that. But I don't want to say like, oh, I drank because of my family in any way. I just to say that like we felt things very intensely. We weren't always the best about showing it, or about expressing it. And sometimes we were the best about expressing it, but it was always just extremes, right? So I kind of grew up in an environment of extremes. And of the three kids, I was the one that was like, just, my, both my siblings are very smart, but I was the one that was like very academically successful. So I became a real perfectionist about that. It was like not acceptable for me to get a B. It was not acceptable for me to not be like the best at something. And I don't think I got that necessarily even from my parents. I got that sort of from something in myself that told me like, you aren't worth it, so you have to be the best so that you have some sort of self-worth. And the way that you can have your self-worth is, to be the best at something, because, you have to stand out. You can't just be like one of the people. Like, that's so boring, right? So that's kind of, how I grew up. And I have a whole like host of other issues, but I do believe that alcoholism, and my treatment of alcoholism helps with these other things. But growing up, I have OCD, and depression and anxiety, and everything that comes with that. And also it's, runs in my family to have eating disorders. And so just as kind of like a backdrop to like the things that were like I was dealing with when I was younger, that, I wasn't drinking alcohol like at 5. I mean, honestly, like relatively to what I've heard of a lot of people's experience, I kind of started drinking later in the game. I think that, but this excessiveness, this need to like, obsess over something, or to just, feel really darkly or feel things really intensely, which is really good when you feel things that are really good. I was a very joyful child, but then I was also like sometimes so scared and depressed. And it was just always such extremes. And that's kind of like what people liked about me. When I was getting into like elementary school and high school, it's like, yeah, there's Lindsay, like she's crazy, right? She's so fun. And I'm like, yeah, like all this stuff like can appear fun because it's mania, right? So I grew up and I didn't have like, I kind of was just like a quirky person that like I knew a lot of people and I hung out with a lot of people, but like I wasn't super, super close to a ton of people. And I never drank. That would I was so scared. I love my mother to death, but I was so scared of my mother. Like I said, I come from an Irish Catholic family, so it's like what will the people say? What will the neighbors think? And so, I learned that I had all of these alphabet of mental illnesses later in my life, because it was not acknowledged in my family. Like we did not discuss mental illness. If you brought it up, like, oh my gosh, you cannot like get treatment for that because people say you're crazy. And like, I don't know who was going to say we were crazy or who the people were, but it was very important that we please these people. And so I grew up in an atmosphere of like a lot of shame, and not that my parents were doing it intentionally. It's just, that's how they grew up. Like that's, you don't talk about this stuff. So it kind of just manifested in like, I excelled in academics. And so I was kind of like left alone on that front because I was getting really good grades. I didn't drink, or use any sort of drug because my mother would kill me. And that was really scary. And again, I love my mother. She is like my best friend, but she wouldn't really kill me, but it was a fear, right? I was like afraid of getting in trouble. And no one I really hung out with drank a ton, so it was like not even on my radar. And then I went to college, and because it was the first time where I was not living with my parents, and because like I like to do things in an extreme way, I did start drinking, in college, and I didn't. Weirdly enough, again, I didn't really start drinking until I turned 21. And again, it was because I was like, even though I was, not a child anymore, and still like, I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to do anything illegal. And, always worried about like, just doing the right thing and not getting in trouble. Especially like because I'm raised Catholic, and you're always worried about getting in trouble there, right? Because hell and burning and fire. So I am still Catholic, and I really respect the Catholic faith. And so I will say that my Catholic upbringing was a lot like my family. Like we love everyone, but also there was this concept of hell and, sinning and doing wrong. So I wanted to be good. And so I went to college and I started drinking when I was 21. I studied abroad. I lied. I started drinking when it was legal, because I studied abroad and it was legal there to drink at 20. So I started drinking at 20. But like everyone was getting drunk at 20, right? I was like, like with a bunch of like college kids. And then I went back to, my school, and I was like, oh, this is just what everybody's doing. Like, we're all getting really drunk, and like, yeah, okay, maybe I'm getting drunker than everybody else, but like, this is what we do, right? And it obviously just didn't seem a big deal because also again, I straight A's, right? And so I wasn't getting these consequences or these things that would come later, that really made me have any fear over drinking. However, in college, I did have a huge explosion of my mental illness. And so I spent my freshman year of college um, in a deep depression, racing OCD thoughts, almost dropped out of school, and just was begging my parents to let me get treatment. And I'm like, I don't even know what I need treatment for, but like, I need to go to the hospital. This is not normal to feel like you want to die. And like, and just a trigger warning that like I have attempted suicide. So that was the first time, and I had had some of this like flashes of this before, but that was the first time where like it really hit the fan, and I was like, I don't know how to exist. Like I feel so empty. And it was weird because I was drinking at that time, and it wasn't really helping. And so, I started to drink more because I was like, well, it's probably because I'm just not drinking enough, right? Because again, excessiveness, more is more. So I had an incident in my senior year of college, where this is a trigger warning for I did attempt suicide. So, this was really hard for me because it was my senior year of college, and I have always thrived on being like the, academic person who was gonna graduate with honors and get, this big important job. And in the middle of my second semester, I left school. I couldn't function. I felt numb. I was just, I was just drinking and not even caring. And at that point I was like drinking to the point of just like getting completely blacked out and like forgetting everything. And so I left school, and I told my mom like I'm quitting, I'm not coming back, and I just like ghosted for like 2 weeks. I ghosted back in 2006 before it was cool. I literally just disappeared, and didn't say anything to anybody, like none of my friends, none of my professors. I just left. And I don't know why, but I did believe in God, and I prayed a lot to God because that was such a scary decision to me. And I got the courage to go back. And I had to beg a lot of professors and make a lot of apologies. So, it's maybe one of my first stabs at making amends. But I did go back to school, because I had resilience, and resilience is wonderful, but resilience can also get you in a lot of trouble because it can make you think that you can do everything on your own. And you know what? You can do a lot on your own. Like, we're all strong people. But I believe, and this is just my thoughts. I'm a lawyer, so I'll say like these are my own opinions and not that of anybody else's or the groups. That it's you can't recover from alcoholism alone, without a higher power, without a fellowship. And so that was hard. I was, look at me, like I left school for 2 weeks and I still graduated like summa cum laude, right? Like I'm awesome. So and I did, and I hopped back in, and I was like, like, there's no problem here, like look at what I just did. um, and then I was able to stay on campus for a little bit because I worked at the library, and I didn't want to leave my boyfriend who was staying for the summer. So I was dating somebody at that time. And a couple weeks after school let out, I drank a ton. At that point I was on some psychiatric meds because I had started to see somebody, but I hadn't really figured out, what was going on. I took a bunch of pills, and I don't remember the next thing that happened, because the next thing that I remember is that I woke up in the hospital. And I had like signed some form that said that I couldn't leave, and I was like, what the, why would I do that? Okay, but you were like super drunk and stuff. So I got in the hospital. And that's where I first learned what OCD was, right? And again, never in any of my point, even though all of this stuff and all of this terribleness, revolves around like, I'm always like, well, wait, you're always like drunk during these things. But never in my once did I think that I might be an alcoholic or have a problem with alcohol. Like, that's ridiculous, right? I'm like psychotic, but I'm not an alcoholic. So I learned what OCD was in the hospital, and I sort of was like, oh, okay, like that sort of makes sense. And I thought that I was better. And I did get better. And I didn't, I stopped drinking so much. I took a year off between my undergrad, and I eventually went to law school. And I worked at a place, and I was like, oh, I'm doing good. And then I went to law school, and it was like, yeah, that's a place where I'm not going to drink, right? No, I mean, everyone, like lawyers drink, right? It's just, it's a stereotype, but it's a stereotype that is very true. And so I went to law school. And I just drank like everybody else, which was like alcoholically, because most of the people that I hung out with drank alcoholically. But again, I'm just doing what everybody else is doing. I went to a big football school, like you tailgate, you get drunk, it's what you do. Um, and I didn't really ever think of it as a problem. Like I was getting drunk and bad things were happening, but like I still was not like this is an issue, or this, possibly like getting drunk all the time might have some aggravating effects on these other illnesses that you have. But again, I was super, super book smart. And my siblings make fun of me because like I'm not street smart. Like I'm just not, right. I'm kind of like, naive, and like I'm just like, and so it's like, yes, I understand how to get an A in a class, but like I can't put together still that like, drinking equals bad things equals Lindsay getting hurt. I can't make that connection. So yeah, so I just kind of drank like everybody else, and I became an attorney, and all my attorney's friends drank. And I still have the same job that basically I had right out of law school. I'm an attorney. I work at a nonprofit. I'm a divorce lawyer. I'm not a person who likes conflict, but I work in a place of a lot of conflict, and it caused me a lot of stress. And my drinking just kind of took off. And just to kind of jump ahead, so the turning points were for me, in it getting worse, were basically, I'm also a big runner. That's a way I deal with stress. It's a way I kind of, come down from all this. And so I hurt myself. It was just a gradual injury. My legs started hurting, and I was training for a race. I was like, oh, this is like not right. And it got worse and worse. And I had not really had anything like that before. And I've always been a very active person. And it took a long time to figure out what it was. And a lot of frustrating, like going to doctors and not getting answers. And that is where my drinking just, and that's not what made me an alcoholic. Like I was born an alcoholic. I'm convinced of that. But it really, really allowed my alcoholism to flourish. My alcoholism became excessive, because I didn't know how to deal with stress. Like I, like, am anxious anyways, have all these things, work at a stressful job, and I'm trying to like deal with stress without like running, right? No. So I just started drinking and drinking. And my then boyfriend, who's now my husband, he started to notice it. His mom is an alcoholic. And so he was getting concerned, and I was like, no, it's just a phase. Like I'm drinking like, whatever, like a bottle and a half of wine a night. It's just a phase. And I just really let myself get dark, really down dark. And in 2017, I was going to get married, to my now husband, and we did get married in October of 2017. But 3 weeks before our wedding, this time actually, and again, a trigger warning that this time I did actually attempt suicide. So I was 3 weeks before getting married to someone who's wonderful, who is my perfect match, who I was so happy, and I didn't know what the heck was going on, but I just got extremely drunk. I don't remember. I locked myself in the bathroom. I took all my pills, anything I could find. And I don't remember. I know that I learned because I woke up in the hospital, and I learned that the fire department had to come in and kick my door down. Um, and that there was a lot had to be done to save my life. And I know that you know I put my husband through a lot of hell that night. But I went into the hospital, and I just kind of was like, no, I'm cool. Like I don't know, I just had a lot to drink, right? Like, come on, Lindsay. Like, and I'm not, I kind of have to laugh about stuff because, it's a way for me to survive trauma. And, and to just also like, it's really hard for me not to take things too seriously. So I do like to laugh and, just remember to keep myself, as I like to say, right sized. So yeah, so I wound up in the hospital and I was there for about a week. And my dad came to visit and my family came to visit. And my dad said to me, he's like, "Do you ever think that maybe like you have a problem with alcohol?" And I was like, no, like that, no, like this is all mental health is no. And I couldn't believe it, but within like a week I was drinking again. I drank at my wedding. I drank to blackout at my wedding. Like and I couldn't understand why any of this was happening. And so skipping a little bit forward, my husband and I basically were married. And there's, just my alcoholism is getting worse. And we decided to have a baby. Because that'll fix it. I mean, but truly, I wanted a child. But so basically, we I got pregnant with my son in December of 2018 after I had finally had surgery to fix my leg injury. And I was like, this is it, right? Okay, I'm done. Like the second I took a positive pregnancy test, the second I took that pregnancy test, I stopped. And this is not to judge anybody, who drank when they were pregnant or anything. We all have our own stories. It's more just to say that, like, again, I was like, well, now I'm not going to because I could hurt this baby, right? And so just cold turkey completely until my son was born. And then I was like, well, now I'm like, I just quit for like 8 months. My son was born premature. Like I just quit for 8 months. I've got this thing licked, right? Like I'm not an alcoholic. Like what alcoholic could go for 8 months without drinking? So I got really cocky. And just within a not long amount of time, I was getting drunk when I was supposed to be watching my son. I was taking money out of his piggy bank to buy alcohol. I was just God, like, I mean, and it's crazy because like this stuff just like kind of rolls off my tongue now because like I'm not saying it's not serious because it is serious. But when I first came into this program, what really stopped me from sharing was shame. And I've had shame all my life and I've always dealt with it and always what will other people think and how could I do this? I'm a bad person, right? And part of the massive transformation I've had in this program is by being able to let go of that shame. I have regret in some things. I wish some things hadn't happened. I wish I hadn't done some things. But I don't have shame anymore because it doesn't serve me and it doesn't serve anyone else. And I'm not going to be ashamed because I have a disease and, I'm getting better. And that was really the breakthrough for me. So, I had all this shame, about my son. And then, I had one day where I went to my doctor's appointment and I was like, I'm not breastfeeding anymore. It's like not working for me, but it was mostly because I wanted to drink. And I got completely drunk on the way home. And this was on the train. And so like, I don't remember it. I just know that one of my sister's friends had to like come find me, the train, and my son was like 2 months old. And it was like, you are literally like the biggest piece of shit in the entire world. That's how I felt. Um, and my son was safe like this whole time. Like my husband's always been there. Like that time we lived with my parents temporarily. Like but it was like, what is wrong with you? That like you think this is okay. And I just like I was kind of okay with a lot of the shame that I felt about myself. Like I'm like, okay, well, like you did this, but like you're a bad person and blah blah blah. But like the shame that I felt of like how I was acting as a mother was what really made me feel like down in the dumps, totally like you are nothing. Um, and so I basically was like, I don't know what to do. I don't want to keep doing this. I can't keep doing this. I did keep doing it until 2022. My husband and I went on, he had me go to Alcoholics Anonymous at that point. That was kind of my introduction. He had been begging and begging me to go to AA, and I'm like, I'm not going to AA because those people are alcoholics. It's weird, and I don't want to go. And I'm not like them. I just need to like learn how to drink right, and all that crap we say before we finally get here and realize that we're exactly where we need to be. But I had been going to meetings because he bought me alcohol if I went to meetings. I mean, I'd go to Zoom meetings, sit there and be like, okay, now go get me my beer or whatever. I had been kind of going to some meetings, and it had like sunk in a little bit, I think, without me realizing it. We went on our 5-year anniversary trip. So I got married in 2017 in October, and we went in October of 2022 to Universal Studios. My husband and I love Halloween, big horror movie fans. They do a big like haunted Halloween thing. There's like 13 haunted houses. I was like basically like in heaven, right? This is like to me like lots of people want to go to Disney, but I'm in like the happiest place on earth. And I was thinking of nothing but getting alcohol. And I was like, what is wrong with me? Like, you had an excuse when your leg was hurting. You had an excuse when you were like postpartum and depressed. You had an excuse for this and this, but like you are happy and you are in a place you want to be and you can just relax. And all you can think about is how you can get a drink. And so that was a Sunday that we left Orlando, or we left on Monday, but that Sunday was the last day that I drank, and I had 2 beers. Right, I wasn't even like I don't even get to have this great story about like my last. No, I don't romanticize it, but 2 drinks. But what stuck out to me was me being like, man, you are so happy and you have this life that you have worked so hard to get, and you are just blowing it over alcohol. Like you spent something that like as a kid you would have like been killed to do because my family did not take like these great vacations. Like you're now making it all about alcohol. Your whole life is about alcohol. And yes, your life is unmanageable. And I don't know why it was that, but it was that made me finally be like, I need to stop drinking. Um, and so luckily, when I decided to stop drinking, I was already in AA, because I had been going to some meetings. So I finally started going to AA and not drinking, and listening. I had gone to so many AA meetings where I would sit there with a notebook and like judgmental me be like, I'm not an alcoholic because that woman like took her baby to a bar. Like I didn't, well, I did wind up taking my baby to a bar, but at that point, and so I'm like, well, I'm not because, I didn't do this, and then, people always are like, well, you have to think yet, right? I didn't do this yet. But I felt all superior. Like and it just was like, I was looking for reasons not to be an alcoholic. And then when I admitted and said for the first time, that I was an alcoholic, and I started to accept it, after 8 months or so of doing AA meetings, I took step one and I admitted that my life was unmanageable and that, I was powerless over alcohol. And it just clicked for me because step one was the hardest one for me. I could not accept that I was powerless over anything, right? I'm the one that turned my life around. Like, look at me. Like 3 months before or 3 weeks before my wedding, I was in the hospital and then I rocked it out and was drunk at my wedding. Like I thought it was so cool, right? But no, I don't have control over this. I can't manage it alone and I need help. And so I was very lucky to have had this family. I came in very early to my sobriety and I loved just the free flowing nature of it, the way people cared about each other. Like I just, I've always had people who have like loved and cared about me, but I've never felt like I belonged to a group of people until I found my place in AA. And I started working the steps and I got a sponsor. And I really, like I say to people, and I say to people like, if you don't have to believe this will happen for you, because I know that like I know that if you're here or you're newer or there's no time limit to which you can still be here and be like, hey, this isn't for me, like I don't really buy into this. Like I don't really know that I need to be here. Like you can think that for as long as you want. But when I finally accepted that I was an alcoholic, it was like, wow, like I can just tell these people anything because I was convinced like the first time I said any of this that like, oh, if you guys find like you're cool because like I'm saying I'm an alcoholic, but maybe you think I just like, get a little tipsy sometimes, but like no, the stuff I've done. And I remember the first time I shared my story and the job that I do sometimes, it's wonderful. I get a lot of affirmation from it, and I get to see a lot of joy. But sometimes, it comes with threats and it comes with risks. And I am very at my home group in person last night, they were talking about anonymity. And I respect 100% everyone else's anonymity. And I am open about being an alcoholic, just myself. I don't always say member of AA. Again, I want to be respectful of the traditions of the program. But I do say that I'm an alcoholic. And part of the reason I started that was I had a situation at work where I was being harassed and a lot of my personal information was being posted widespread online. And so I was like, you know what? I'm tired of living in fear. I'm tired of living in shame. I'm tired of sitting here wondering what this person's going to post or what this person's going to say. And I just don't give a shit anymore. And if people are going to find out that I'm an alcoholic, I'm not ashamed of it anymore. And they're going to find out from me. So I put a post on Facebook and I said, it was me and my husband and I had a Diet Coke and I said, I've decided nothing about AA. I just said, you know what, I've decided that alcohol is no longer a part of my life, at least for the time being. Because that's what I needed to do. I wanted people to know. I wanted people to help me because I knew that I wasn't strong enough. A lot of my friends, I still have the same friends. I still, and I still have the support from my family, but like that was a lot of what we did, right? And so I wanted them to know, like, please don't offer me alcohol. And they were all amazing. And I'm very lucky for that because I know that is not everybody's experience. But for me, it was so freeing to be able to be like, this is the darkest thing that I have felt about myself. Like, this is the deepest, most shameful thing I have ever thought about myself, that I could possibly be an alcoholic. And now I'm like, everyone I mean, we had my work benefit 2 weeks ago. And it's like when you like, I'm also a marathoner and they always say like, you'll know someone's done a marathon because they'll tell you. That's how I feel about how I am in AA. Like I love telling people I'm an alcoholic and I'm like, I don't expect that of everybody. Like everyone's got their own story, but for me, embracing that allowed me to embrace so many of the things about myself that I didn't like and that I was ashamed of and that I just was so worried about what, everybody would find out. And that was like, that unlocked it for me. Like that was the key to my transformation in this program, was that I turned from being a person who was so sick and so sad and so ashamed and so hard on myself to somebody who acknowledged that I had an illness and acknowledged that I had flaws, but that there is no such thing as a good or bad person. We're all flawed people. In opening that door, I have been able to do what is most important to me, and that is helping others. I sponsor people, and I love it. I learn more from them than they do from me, I am sure. I spread the program, but I also, I I spread the program in a way that is like, hey, if you're into it or you want to know about it, and talk to me. And if you're not, like, I don't, I've had a lot of people come to me and be like, wow, I don't want you to judge me if I'm not stopping drinking. I'm like, I don't care what you do, like, like this, like I don't care about me drinking. Like, I don't. That's your business. But like I've been able to be open about recovery and other things and struggles and like my OCD and like eating disorders and all this stuff that I was just like, oh, this pit of shame, like I could die if anybody ever found out any of this. And now, I don't want to be like the person who's saying every part of my personal business, but I am general and I invite people to talk about what is bothering them. And honestly, like when somebody reaches out to me and is like, I really was like, felt comforted by your story, or someone says, I reached out to you because like I was totally not sure if people would be cool with this, but like I know you are. And it's just it's made me really happy. And I like I love that I was about to say, not that everything is sunshine and rainbows, right? But my poster was like sunshine and rainbows, and like all of the versions of my poster were sunshine and rainbows. So I do really like to come in here with a positive attitude, because boy, it is so refreshing after 39 years of being absolutely the most negative person in the world. And so I do like to spread joy and optimism. But honestly, I have been struggling lately, and I have been not wanting to socialize. And I've talked about this in the group where I'm just kind of going through a depression, and I just and it's not my best time, right? And I was like, oh, I don't want to share when I'm like not doing great, right? Oh, bummer. But I'm so glad I did, because like I have been feeling really crappy, but like in being able to just tell this story, like I feel so much joy right now. And I'm like, I'm so grateful. And this is, it's, and also like, it's not fucking about me. Cause I was all like, maybe I could say something came up. Like, can I say a work thing came up? You know, and I was like seriously thinking about not doing this because it just have been so in my head, and I'm so glad I did. You know, I just, if you're new and you're struggling, like, you know, it's hard because you are going to see a lot of people who are like, we and happy. And, you know, and I can tell you that I can be that way, but I can also be really, really down and really sad and really depressed. But I am never hopeless anymore. I'm just not because I know that I can feel bad, but I'm not drinking. I know that I can feel bad, but I'm not alone. I have all these people now who I can reach out to, and I don't have to feel shame, and I'm helping them and they're helping me, and I can get out of myself, and I have all these tools that, like, God, I wish sometimes I want to go back to like 5-year-old Lindsay and be like, it's gonna be okay, you know. It really is, I promise. But again, you know, just to I, you know, I hope that something in, you know, my talk inspired you. I hope that you understand that like this program can do miracles. Like I said, it's the last place I wanted to be. My first in-person meeting, I walked in and it was like literally an old man in a church basement. And I was like, this is the lowest I can, you know, and I love it. He's like one of my favorite people in the world. I was like, you know, I just, you know, and he is still in the meeting. He is still in my Friday night home group. But I was like, what have I become, you know? And like, now I'm like, just so proud of what I've become. But you know, people like to say like I'm a different person now. And I am in some ways, but I also like to say that, you know, and this is where I go, so I come back to my butterflies. You know, butterflies are beautiful, but they are, you know, what happens is actually not beautiful. So, you know, they go into the chrysalis and then they dissolve into goo and then they reform into the butterfly. I'm pretty sure that's true. So, but you know, but it's the same stuff, right? And so that's why I like to think of myself, right? Like, yes, I've come a long way and I feel like I'm a better version of myself, but like I was never that bad of a person, right? I was a sick person. And I've gotten to grow to appreciate the things about me that were always there, and to just sort of give myself a lot more grace than I ever did. And I love this family. If you're here for the first time, please stay with us. Like everyone here is amazing. Like I feel like anytime I go through anything now, I'm just like, oh, got text like, you know, new spiritual family, but not the service chat or the, you know, to make sure I'm texting the right chat. You know, it's just like in supportive, like I've never felt like I feel, like I said, I feel love, but I have never felt loved like I have felt by AA in this family. And it is unbelievable. You can feel that any room you go into. There's just that sense of like, I'm home. And so this is why this is my home group. And you are all my family. Sorry, but thank you. Thank you for letting me do this today because you know what? I needed it. And hopefully one of you or more needed it too. So thank you guys.